You're watching or listening to The Looking Forward Show on PhillyCam, WPPM LP, Philadelphia, 106.5 FM, or PhillyCam TV. You can also see us live streaming on Xfinity 66 and 966, on Vios TV 29 and 30, on Roku, Apple TV, and Facebook, as well as our YouTube channel. And now, here's your host, Jeffrey Abramowitz. We are at PhillyCam, and you are listening to The Looking Forward Show. Jeff Abramowitz here. You are listening to PhillyCam Radio, WPPM LP, Philadelphia 106.5 FM. And we're also on PhillyCam TV, live streaming at Xfinity 6696, on Vios TV 29 and 30, Roku, Apple TV, and on our YouTube station. I'm so excited about today's show. I have so much to catch up on, but I want to lead off with this. And first, we are PhillyCam, and PhillyCam, as you know, is our public broadcasting network here in Philadelphia. And often, actually as a rule, we don't often ask for funds from our guests or ventures. Today is different. Today is different because we are in the midst of our fund drive here at WPPM 106.5 FM, and this is what helps fund the great work of PhillyCam. All the shows that you listen to, including yours truly and the Looking Forward Show, we're free of charge for us. I come into the studio and I have a great cast of characters behind me that are running all the technology and making sure everything operates well and gets us out on the air so that we can bring awesome guests and content to the Philadelphia region. And it can't be done without some funding and making sure that we have our equipment is in line and that everything else that's needed to run a radio station actually takes place. So, that being said, here's the ask. If you've never given to PhillyCam, I want you to think about it. Make a contribution to WPPM LP Philadelphia to PhillyCam, and it's really, really simple. If you go to phillycam.org/donate, super simple. Now, I just checked our board, and on our tote board, we are so close to our $5,000 goal. We're so close. So you can get us there. I want you to get us there during the show. So if you're listening to us and you're out there, we need about $800 to get there. So go on to PhillyCam right now, phillycam.org/donate, and make it happen so we can continue doing the great show and all this great equipment and everything else that we have here that allows us to do good work can continue. So thank you for that. And you'll be hearing more about that during the show. But I'm really excited. We have a great a friend and also a wonderful guest today. And I'm so glad he took time and made a huge journey down from Scranton to come see us today. And I appreciate Christian Stevens. So we're gonna talk to him today. But I want to do a quick catch up before we go too further. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what's happened over the last few days. So last night, I was at an event in New York, came back to Philadelphia for the show today, and it was by Just Leadership USA. So if anyone doesn't know what Just Leadership is, it's this remarkable organization that actually works to take people that are men and women that are justice impacted and helps you become leaders in the country. And I was in the class of 2018, and they really, when I came home, they were instrumental in really helping me tell my story, share my passion, and really become an advocate for justice reform in the country. And I probably couldn't have done what I'm doing today without the help of the people in Just Leadership. But they had their annual benefit last night, and I was really excited to go up there. The last time I had gone, I had taken my daughter, and we had just a wonderful experience. But last night, they honored a few people that were truly, my jaw dropped a little bit, and I don't get starstruck very often. But Larry Miller was there. He's the chairman of Jordan Brand Advisory Board. That's a division of Nike. And Larry Miller has been in the basketball game for a long time. And it was only a few years ago that his daughter, who had been working on a book with him, decided to get him to tell his story. And he came out and said, look, you know, I have a criminal background, and I want to tell you a little bit about my background and my story. Just a remarkable person. And he also had some people in the audience that he had served some time with. So just imagine, you know, those men and women that are out there that are coming home and think you can't make something unbelievably successful of yourself. If you've been away and done some time, just not true. It's just not true. Larry Miller he's got an incredible story. He just has a new book out called Jump, and I'd encourage you to go check it out. And also Tracy McMillan was there. Tracy is the author and creator of Unprisoned, which is a new series on Hulu. So again, a little starstruck, but she was remarkable telling her story about how it all got started and her journey not through her, but through her father who had been incarcerated. Also had to catch up with a good friend, Saul Paul, who was a Grammy nominated artist who was there performing, and he was also in my class at Just Leadership USA, and he's done some great stuff. And Hakeem Crampton was there hosting everything. Just an amazing evening. Big shout out to Just Leadership USA for the great work, and Deanna Hoskins, who's doing some great work across the country. So that was part. And then last week I had the opportunity to speak to the rescue mission of Trenton. And this is about the third or fourth time I was at the rescue mission and was able to participate in their New Direction program, which is a program which takes, I think there are about 12 to 14 people, maybe a little more in the room, and they're going through a program of reintegration. And they all are residents of the rescue mission of Trenton. They're all justice impacted, and they're working in a program called New Direction that was founded by Chef Jeff, which is Jeff Henderson, who's was a chef at Bellagio. He's doing amazing work around the country, and he's a good friend. So I got to talk to the men there, and we spent an afternoon together, and it just got me so riled up, and I just love it. And the people there are really doing a great job, but the men there are really dedicated to their next chapter, figuring out what their next step is going to be and how they're going to be successful. And a big shout out to those that connected afterwards. I had about half a dozen calls from some of the men that were in the class saying, "Mr. A, I need some help with this," or "Can you get me this?" or "I need some advice on this." And it was just great, and I loved every second of it. So keep those calls coming. The last thing I want to talk about was something that happened last weekend at Race Street Pier. So in Philadelphia, down on the waterfront is Race Street Pier, and just decided to take a walk with Lisa, my partner. We were walking down there, and we went in. There's like a fair, like a community fair kind of stuff. They're selling some things in booths, but half of the pier was dedicated to this exhibit, and the exhibit was called Liberation Education. And I'm telling you, I can't get this out of my head. Liberation Education were all these young people that set up this entire installation of, it was art, it was very interactive. They even took sheets and they made them into a prison cell, and showing people what it was be like to actually live in a small box or a small cell. And it was so impactful, but they really did a great job of the whole exhibit was incredible. One thing that they also did, which I thought was really neat, was they had these phones set up, and you picked up a phone and you were actually able to kind of listen to somebody that was incarcerated tell their story. But when you got done and hung up the phone, you could get this, it said print a ticket, and you printed the ticket, and it had all the costs that were involved for that particular individual, like the cost of what that phone call cost. The phone cost, like $12 for somebody's family, and for them being in prison, it was like how much it cost to house them every day. And we know it's about $40,000 in Pennsylvania, I guess, give or take, but what it cost to house them for that day, and you got to take it with you. It was just really, really incredible. So big shout out to Liberation Education, and looking forward to following up with some of the young people there, because they were just, very motivation. I was all stoked when I got home, and I had to do some research on them, and they're going to be guests at some time in the future for sure. So today's show is a great show because it's just me and someone that we don't often get to hear a lot from our government officials and people that work in the corrections setting about all the good things that are going on, and also some things they need to work on. It's an honest conversation, honest dialogue. And I've known Christian Stevens, who's Deputy Secretary of Field Services for the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, for a number of years. And he was actually one of the early guests on our show. And I'm so grateful that he got to come in today because we're going to be talking to him about what's happening at the Department of Corrections for probation and parole and the work that they're doing. And they are doing some great things. So I really want to give a shout out to the DOC for things that are happening and really have an honest discussion of what else could be doing. You know, what else? How can we make the system better? Because we know it's not perfect, and we all can be doing better. So when we come back, we're gonna bring Christian on and spend some time with him and have a great discussion. So you are listening to PhillyCam, WPPM LP 106.5 in Philadelphia, and this is the Looking Forward Show. We will be right back. We are back, and in studios, Christian Stevens. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you, Jim?
All right, we're going to get you set up here so everybody can hear you really well. I'm just going to pull that really close. There
Okay.
you go. There you
better?
go. There you go. It's from your
Okay.
singing days, you know. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
I'm so grateful that you got to come in. So I reached out to Lou Narvaez. So everyone that watches the show knows that Lou has been a friend of the show for the longest time since we started, and he has been he is as steady as the sun. Because if I call him and say, Lou, I need you to come on and tell me about this, and he jumps over hurdles. And this time he said, you know what? I got a better one for you. He said, I think I need to reach out to Christian and see if he can come on the show. I'm so glad you said yes. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. I told Lou. I said, I loved doing this show when I first started, and it's a great opportunity to come and talk about the things that we're doing in the department. And so I said, when Jeff gets started back, let me know, and I'll definitely carve out that time.
Yeah, it's definitely honored by it, and thank you for spending some time. And I get some time with you, quality time to kind of chat and hear what's going on and talk about a lot of different things. So I guess we want to start off by you're Deputy Secretary of Field Services for the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, and I guess our audience may have no idea what that does or what that means. So
Right.
can you tell us what you do?
So my position came from the merger of the parole board, the field agents that worked for the parole board and the Department of Corrections. Prior to that, I was the state director for parole for the parole board. Once we merged, then that position became the Deputy Secretary of Field Services. So the state parole agents across the state fall under my purview.
Wow, big job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a little, a little bit, a lot of it, man. That's so. How many agents do we have?
I want to say we have about 700 agents across the state
Yeah, you got a little job.
and about 100 supervisors.
Wow.
And then we have deputy directors and clerical staff, and so it's a nice sized department.
So how long? So first of all, I'm curious. So you give me a little runway here. So how'd you get started in this?
Well, I'll tell you, I started actually at Philadelphia County Probation. My brother was a probation officer there. Actually, he just retired after 33 years.
Wow.
And I was living in North Carolina. I was coaching gymnastics and decided I wanted to come back home. And he said, I'll see if I can talk to someone and get you an opportunity. And I came into probation, and I really thought it would be a stepping stone to me doing something else. And once I started it, I loved the work. I loved the opportunity we had to work with people. And I was probably at Philadelphia County for about 3-4 years, and I transitioned to state parole, and I just took off from there.
Wow. Yeah, it's so it's unusual too for people for people in the correction setting to stay so long at any particular job for a lot of reasons. One is some of the positions as you go up are they're politically driven, so often you lose because someone comes into office and they bring their own staff in, that
Right.
kind of thing. And to get people that have dedicated their careers to it and it's pretty remarkable. And it's definitely you've seen a lot.
Right. I mean, I'll say one of the things that's probably unique with me being in this position is that I started out as a parole agent. And so generally you don't see people come up through the ranks and end up in these positions. That was a blessing in 2016 under Governor Wolf, and Leo Dunn was the chairman.
Yeah.
You know, I was asked to come up and fill this position, and it's been all change, you know, since we started.
Well, that's great. So yeah, you've been under a few superintendents, of people above you.
Yes, yes.
There's been a few. I know that Secretary Little,
Yes.
Secretary Wetzel.
Secretary Wetzel, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it was funny because I remember the first time I met Secretary Little I was at no, actually it was Secretary Wetzel. I was at a workforce development board meeting. It was my first meeting ever, and he plopped down right next to me and he said, "What you got going today?"
Right.
And he was and Secretary Little, both have been good friends of the show. We've had them on and they've opened the door up. We know sometimes that some agencies in government close their door when it comes to the media. And you guys have always been very forthright, and including Lou. There's not a show that he's been on where he hasn't called it the way you saw it, and has been really honest about it. So I give you a big shout out and give the secretary a shout out for allowing this dialogue to happen, because it is really important.
Right. I would say now we have Acting Secretary Harry, and she's brought a lot of innovation and a lot of great thoughts, and I guess we're in the process of implementing and bringing about whatever these new changes are going to be.
Yeah, really exciting times, because I think with a new administration also comes the ability to change. And too often we get stuck in that we get complacent. We're in the system, we keep running and we keep doing the same thing over and over again. But as Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? So we got to really change it up. So, so much has happened since you and I have last met. I transitioned my job. I know that you've we've all kind of navigated and moved through COVID. And I'm curious to start there, because our audience, I get asked this question a lot, like, are we all back? Like, is it resolved now, or are we dealing with it? And what did we really learn from it all? So I guess I'll give you a big softball on this one is, how are we doing post-COVID, and are we doing back in programming now, and how are facilities kind of adjusting from all this?
Well, I would say that we definitely learned a lot from COVID, and through COVID, there were a lot of innovations that kind of went in place. And so as we take a step back and look, some of those things we want to hold on to, you know, they allowed us to test areas that we normally would not have tested, you know. But overall, I think from the prison standpoint, I think we're pretty much back to operations as close to normal. There's this idea that COVID has gone away. I think COVID is kind of still out there. We just address it in a different way. We kind of look at it like we look at dealing with the flu. So there are protocols and stuff that we have in place. From a field operations standpoint, we never stopped having our agents in the field and working with the reentrants when COVID was going on. But we did really find some great innovations over the last 6 years. I'll say we started about 4 years ago, transitioning the field to a total mobile operation.
So this is one of the most incredible things. So this happened while we were on air, like while we knew Lou, and we heard about this. And I think this is so, it's not talked about. And I think we really need to shine a light on it. So explain what you mean by what really happened.
So we took the opportunity to look and say, you know, what is the need of the reentrants that we're working with in these communities? And one of the things that we definitely realize is that, one, we don't want people missing work. We don't want to create the transportation costs that it costs to come to the office and do the things that need to be done. So we totally changed up our model, made our agents 100% mobile. So they're in the field. And from that, we were able to make some cost savings. I believe we closed 4 offices. And so our agents are coming out to the homes. They're coming to the jobs. They're meeting people in the community. They're fully engaged in the community. They're working out of spaces that may be partnering with the community providers. And so they're really immersed in the communities that they're working with. And so the idea of we're in an office and we deploy out into our community and we come back, those days are no more.
So I will tell you, so you know my history, and I did some time away, but one of the most challenging reintegration parts for me was that that monthly check-in that I had to go see my officer when I was on supervised release. Like it was anxiety. It was often getting an excuse from work, so I had to get a note to get out or had to be excused from work, and I just every time I went there, it was I just relived the courtroom and every time I went there, it was like because the supervision was in the same building, the federal building,
Right.
same place where the courthouse is, and I would relive it every time. The fact that now agents are in the community, I just think gets us one gigantic step closer to recognizing how much the community and the reentrants and people coming home we all have to kind of work together. Like we all have to figure this out.
Right. I mean, I think that's one of our shifts in philosophy. We understand that all reentry is local and all reentry is really community based. And you cannot be community corrections without engaging the community.
Yeah.
And so, it's important to us that we partner with all the communities that we're working in right now.
I love it. So we were talking earlier before the show started about a little bit about my philosophy that when you leave a prison or jail, that there's this fast flowing water outside that often drags you back into your community where you'd gotten into some trouble before. And, one of the things that we all need to do is kind of help people over that water. And sometimes it's a life raft, and sometimes it's a rope. Sometimes you got to build a full bridge for them, whatever it is to get them over. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, what do you see agents and our parole systems doing now to kind of help people navigate as they go through the journey?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that we have to understand that the reintegration part has to start inside. From day one, the moment they walk through those doors, that process has to start. One of the big things is we've integrated a new assessment. We've moved away from the LSIR. We moved to the Strong R.
Yay! That should get applause from everyone out there. We'll explain in a minute, but go ahead.
But it's really given us a far more accurate assessment around the needs and around the actual risks. And so now while an individual is doing their time, they can get programming that's actually going to address the needs to allow them to return to the community and function better.
Yeah, man, that's just another thing that kind of has gotten me all excited because since the day that I come home and I started recognizing what that LSRI, which is a risk needs assessment, and I was like, man, I get it. You need to do some kind of assessment, but why not start with a needs assessment? Let's see what people really need to be successful when they come home and kind of take it from there. And I'm so glad that they've moved to a better system to try and figure all that out.
Right, and I would say from the field, one of the things that we do, we really incorporate Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's the pyramid that we're working on, and if we're not addressing those needs, then the risk is definitely going to increase. So we've become very needs focused.
That's awesome. So there's so much to talk about when we talk about probation and parole, and I'm curious, like how have it's your time to shine. Like I'm going to give you the floor on this, but what have you seen happening at in the department, and how have you seen what changes have you seen being made that really have improved the system?
Oh, well, I mean, one of the things I would definitely say is that we've become far more specialized in how we do the job. When I was an agent, and I was a parole agent right here in Philadelphia, I had C in Allegheny, that was my area. And I had every type of case, every type of individual on my caseload. And so now we look and say that every type of individual brings their own needs. And so we have an AOD caseload for those that have AOD issues. We have a mental health caseload for those that have mental health issues. We have an intensive caseload for those that are actively engaged and have the highest probability to commit violence or be the victims of violence. We have a sex offender caseload. And so how specialized we've become in our approach and tailoring our approach to the need of the individual has really allowed us to see lower technical parole violators and lower convicted parole violators over the last few years.
Yeah, it's staggering how many people are incarcerated because of a technical violation. And it often seemed to me like if we could do more just knocking down that number and understanding what the violation was really all about
Right.
and trying to figure that piece of it out, then maybe you can keep them from going back inside.
I'll tell you the biggest key, and it's one of our agendas over the next 4 years, uh, in getting the technical parole violator numbers down is that individuals cannot abscond. You have to communicate with your agent. Irrespective of what is going on, what the situation is, we are here to work with you.
Yeah, I think if that message was really crystal clear to everybody out there that, if you got if you got a violation or something bad's happened, man, you're better off not running away from it, just facing it and dealing with it. And it probably will be a lot better off in the long run if you just step up and say, hey, this is what's going on.
I mean, I'll tell you with the organizations that we partner with in the community and how our agents are trained, there are very few situations someone's going to bring to our agents that we're not prepared to work with them on. It's when they run or when they abscond that makes it very hard to do anything at that point.
No, I hear you. I think there's so I think that's part of that specialization piece is really important and trying to work in the community and make that community those community connections. You've been doing a bunch of other little things which have been remarkable. I don't know. I know you were part of it, but I've participated over the last few years in the call-in program.
Right.
And why don't you tell us what the call-in program was and what it is? It's just incredible, and I'm so tickled, but I'll tell you my slant on it.
Right. It's a partnership with the U.S. Attorney's Office where we identify those individuals who have the highest probability to commit violent crime or be the victims of violent crime. We actually call them in. We bring in very high-level officials from DEA, FBI, the Attorney General, the chairman of the board, the Secretary of Corrections, and really let them know, listen, we know you're home, and if you're going to go the wrong way, then this is what's going to happen to you. But the trade-off on that is we bring in a host of providers on the other end to say, if you want to go the right way, then we're going to throw the kitchen sink at it. We're going to do everything we can to help you be successful.
Yeah, so I got to tell you, I almost wet my pants the first time I did this because I was like, and I was in the room listening to them, and they scared me when I first was listening. But the truth is, they really are giving people another opportunity. And the program works really because afterwards they have the community come in and say, look, and I would go in there and say, look, I got reentry services and I got jobs for you. And I would say, I used to keep track of it before I left Jeff's Human Services. I think I had worked with probably over 30 men that had been in that program and that reached out and said, I need a job. And don't know where they are now, but I like to think maybe they're out.
Right. I'll tell you, one of the big things that we learned from that program is I think early on the program was so successful that we've modeled the majority of our supervision strategies in Philadelphia and in Chester around that model. And so when we look at our parole violators across the state, Philadelphia and Chester right now are our lowest because of that modeling.
It really is, and one of our good friends, our mutual friend, Cindy Zeidema, has been leading the charge with that. And I just saw Cindy, we were with her in a reentry simulation we did at the Constitution Center not long ago. They just launched a new one and had a chance to facilitate that with her, and it was really, it was great. What a great program, though. We are here with Christian Stevens, and we're gonna continue our discussion in a minute. You're listening to the Looking Forward Show, and we'll be right back. We are back here with Christian Stevens, Deputy Secretary for Field Services for the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections. And before we get back into our discussion, reminder everybody out there, we're counting you. We want to get over 5,000 during this show. So it is our funding event for WPPM 106.5 FM. It's really simple to do. Just get online, make your contribution, and make your donation at phillycam.org/donate, or you can send a check to PhillyCam at P.O. Box 43776, Philadelphia, PA 19106. I'll give you more on this, but it's allowing shows like this to be on air, and really excited. And we're hoping we'll be able to reach that mark before the end of the show. So go do it. Go out and make that donation right now. So we're back here, Christian. I have so much to talk to you about. We could probably go on for hours, but I want to give you a little bit of what is it that that you think the Department of Probation and Parole and parole officers are doing unbelievably well.
Engage in the communities. I think that is a shift in our approach to working in these communities. I think previously people saw a parole agent come in the community, they really didn't know who he was or what he did, or we were an anomaly. And so now, part of the job is that they have to engage the community. They have to work with that community provider. They have to talk to those neighbors. And I think they've done an excellent job at doing that.
That's awesome. And I have to give a shout out to both of our friend, because I think Lou Narvaez probably had a big part, at least here in Philadelphia. Are you able to see from a change in the data, the statistics of how this has impacted the system? Are we seeing lower recidivism rate? Is it leveled off? Like, what are you seeing from the data point?
So I think when we look at the recidivism rate, there was a recent assessment that was done where the recidivism rate in 2013 was 64%. And right now we're still flat. We're at about 64%. But I think if you look at that in context too, we did that through an opioid epidemic, through a violent crime increase, that when you look at the rates of everything else are up and we stayed flat, I see that as a success. But where I talk about Lou is, when Lou came in and took over, the Eastern region probably had some of the highest technical parole violator rates and convicted parole violator rates. Right now, they're the lowest in the state.
Wow.
So, he's done a great job.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. For Philadelphia, I imagine Philadelphia and Pittsburgh are the two big. They're the two big jurisdictions people return to. But also, not one of our neighbors. I mean, Chester is a big is a place where a lot of people come to, and we have SCI Chester that's down there. I want to talk to you about SCI Chester. So the PD Green program, where I'm the CEO, does a lot of work there in the education space, and we have. And every time I go down there, I'm just floored. Number one, because it's they're doing some really progressive things. They have the Scandinavian Village that's down there, which is kind of this amazing unit where people are really getting an opportunity to really test the waters of reintegration, I guess, and get prepared. So have you been down there yet?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
It's amazing work they're doing. I believe they went to Scandinavia a few years ago and saw that model, and they brought it back. And COVID made it a little bit challenging, but I think they have a good start in getting it implemented and are off and running now.
Yeah, so it's the kind of program though that they're cooking their own food.
Right.
They're actually have a little bit nicer cells. Like they're getting ready for that next. They also have a big fish tank there. They have a mindful room. They have all these different cool things that are getting people like prepared for what that next step is. But besides that, there's some great programming going on there. I've been working with the men at the Real Rap program.
Right.
And was down and had a chance to sign my name on the wall in the Real Rap program, and really doing some remarkable stuff and helping people really mentally stay healthy during the journey when they're going through their time. So just an incredible, and I'm sure it's not just at SCI Chester. I know we're doing some work at SCI Phoenix.
Right. I mean, I would give just credit to the education departments across the Department of Corrections. To see individuals come into the department not having their GEDs, and just the level of GED success is just outstanding. But then to provide the other opportunities for college education, college courses and other type of education, be it trade, they do just an excellent job.
Yeah, they really do. I was out at SCI Green because we do some work in Pittsburgh, and had a chance to go into the facility and work with some men there. And they were doing they have an HVAC training program there, which is super cool.
Right.
And they were stuck because everyone could do the physical act that they were trained for. Like they could really fix stuff in the HVAC. They really were learning the trade, but they had trouble with fractions. and they couldn't pass the darn test. So we got some of our tutors working with them, and then all of a sudden, boom, the lights started going on, and then the contextualization of that learning really helped, and they were able to move forward and pass the test. And I think we're seeing more and more of that kind of integration.
Right, and I'll tell you one of the other things that we have seen. I mean, there were so many restrictions on if you had a conviction, you couldn't be licensed in something, and so we're starting to see some shift there, and that's excellent also.
Yeah, so I'll stand up on that one because that started with my when we started on the Pennsylvania Workforce Development Board. One of the first initiatives was trying to get the occupational licensing laws of our state looked at, and that was 3 years ago, three and a
Right.
half years ago, and we're really beginning seeing that change. We recently were in a little bit of a battle at the state level because a lot of the regulations started coming down, and they were so preclusionary that it defeated a lot of the intent of the law. And we recently, a few weeks ago, had some recommendations passed by the board that are going to the governor to reconsider and look at those regulations again. Great stuff. So we're friends, and we're honest with each other. So I'm curious, like, what needs work? Where should you be focusing, and where do you want the community to know that you're focusing to maybe do better?
So what I would say to that is I think where we're doing well at is where we can have to continue to do better at, and that's engaging communities, partnering with providers. We're doing a thing right now where we're working with Ben Franklin High School. I mean, that's an area where parole normally wouldn't get involved in, right? But now we're sending our agents and our staff, into the school to work with these students, and so really becoming part of the community. About 3 years ago, and we had to close our West Philly office, and we're going to be looking at opening it back up. But just an example is we partnered with University of Penn medical interns. And so when a reentrant came to the office to see an agent, they got a wellness check. Like, these are ways that we can partner and change, how parole is actually viewed in these communities.
So you and I were talking too, and I mentioned a good friend, Mazzy Kasher. Mazzy's been on the show before a number of times, and with Philly Truce. And Mazzy had some pearls of wisdom the last time he was on. He said, Jeff, you really should be thinking this as a public health issue. And I was glad for you to say that. But how much of what we see and the challenges that we face in the reentry space, how much is it really a public health issue that's really a challenge from the public health arena?
I think all this is a public health issue. I think even when we look at mental health, the Department of Corrections is the leading mental health provider in the state of Pennsylvania. That's not good.
Yeah.
And so when we look at the violent crime, we can say this is a violent crime situation, but it's really a public health issue. And I think if we approach it from that perspective, then we bring different solutions to the table.
Yeah, and I'm not sure we're super hyper focused on that yet. I think we need to get even more focused about bringing mental health professionals in. But you had mentioned to me too, we were talking a little bit about the reality that, these things of conflict resolution. And I was talking to some employers recently in a workshop I did for the state of Illinois, and one of the employers got on and said, you know what? We can teach anybody to do anything in my company. Like, I can really spend time and I could teach them anything. I just can't teach them how to be on time. And I can't teach them how, when something goes not so right, like how to own up to it and work out a conflict with somebody else on the line. Or I can't tell him how to wear his pants so his butt crack's not showing.
Right.
Like, those little things. What should we be doing to kind of make that happen?
I think there's a lot of work that we can do around the soft skills. I think part of that has to start while they're inside. There's this thought that I'm just going to do what I have to do while I'm in, and when I get out, I'm going to hit the ground running. And a lot of times that's a little bit too late. So I think we have to start those processes on the inside. As I said to you, probably two of our largest barriers are conflict resolution and crisis management. That we see guys that have come out, they're very well-intended. Well, men and women come out and they're very well-intended, they're doing well, and they hit that first crisis. They hit that first conflict, and it sends them into a spiral. And so, the better we can work with individuals to let them understand that whatever they're facing, it's called life, right? And then as staff, if they understand that we're a resource, that parole is a resource to help you through that time, then I think we will get better outcomes.
And it can be little things too. I think when we talk mental health crisis, so first of all, this really all started when we closed all behavioral health hospitals years
Yes.
ago, and all we really did was moved them from the hospital and put them in prison. You know, people were out on the streets, they were in crisis, and we just began locking more and more people up. And I think more of that behavioral health intervention
Right.
and understanding it. I'm just curious, do we have any behavioral health specialists that are in the probation parole department? Like, is that a unit that really works with people?
So not in the probation parole department, but what we have done is we've partnered with the Department of Mental Health and created a curriculum for our mental health agents. So we have specialized agents that are totally trained to deal with people that have mental health challenges. And we've created caseloads. So our normal caseloads at one time, we're about 60 to 1. On those caseloads, we're about 25 to 1.
Wow.
Right.
So we've been battling two big issues in Philadelphia, and it's not unique. I've traveled around the country this year, all over, just about almost 38 states. And in every single state, it's the same thing. Opioids and guns
Right.
are the two things. And, statistically, we just recognize that the leading cause of child death in our country is gun violence, is guns. And, I remember I was teaching a class once about appearance is reality, and we were taught there was a story that I relayed to our students about, there were more people at the time. There were more children that died in pool drownings and pool accidents than accidental gun discharges. And we were asking the wrong question at the time. What should it be about? Does your friend's dad have a gun? It's, do they have a pool? And I think the whole trend of that has really changed now, where guns are they're so prevalent and they're out on our streets today. And the thing that's frustrating is we're just not focusing on what the real issue is. And I get really frustrated because a lot of the country now is looking at banning books in our schools, and I've never seen a book actually kill someone. So we really should be focusing on the right things, which are, why are kids using guns, and what can we do? And there's so many pieces to that puzzle, way more than we could ever talk about in the length of this show. But I'm kind of curious a little bit from your perspective. What are the when we talk about recidivism, we talk about some of these challenges as people go through the system and they're going through, and 60% plus is a huge number for recidivism, no matter how you slice it. But what are the things is any of that, the gun violence and the opioid problem, is that what's making this churn go round?
Most definitely. I would say, the opioid, just the drugs are driving the numbers. We see opioids in Philadelphia, other parts of the state, but like up in the northern tier, meth is raging again. And so, where you have large amounts of drugs being used and sold, then you get the gun violence that comes with it. And that's the challenge, because these our reentrants are returning home to these communities. And so to be able to flourish in a community like that, it makes it challenging.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think we have to start really looking at, especially for our young people. So you mentioned Ben Franklin, and I know Lou and I were a part of, well, he's still doing the work, but actually going to Ben Franklin High School and working with some young folks. And I remember we did the first time we went there, I was with Lou, and he spoke to them for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and he gave them all his wisdom that he gives young people about, how you stay out of trouble, and there's resources out there. And I got up there and talked to him about how I can help and what I could do, and just giving them, just some real good advice on, some challenging things that they're going to be facing. And everyone in the class was kind of all, they're kind of high school kids, and they were all, yeah, kind of thing. And no one really spoke up. No one asked for anything at the time. And then I left, and I live in Fishtown. I was about to get to my house, and maybe a 5-minute drive from Ben Franklin, and my phone lit up from like a Christmas tree.
Right.
Like all the students, they didn't want to say anything in front of everybody, but behind the scenes, my mom, we need diapers for my brother. We need food, or we're living in my aunt's house on the sofa. We need a place to live. And all of a sudden, the real things started coming out. Like reality started to focus out. And I think I'm so glad that our parole officers are now looking in the community, and we're raising these issues and opening the doors up. So again, another shout out to Lou, but we need to do this across the state.
Right. I mean, I think we can have an impact if we, now that we're taking a wraparound approach, that we just can't help the person who's on parole and ignore their family.
Yeah.
That if they have family members who are in need, we need to take that full approach and address everyone. So that's part of that mobile philosophy, that we take a wraparound approach to addressing, the population that we're working with.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So you're listening to the Looking Forward Show. We're going to be right back. And when we come back, Kristen's going to give us some action steps. And we want to know, what can the community do to help? How can you out there in listening land engage? So you're listening to the Looking Forward Show, and we'll be right back. We are back at the Looking Forward Show. You're listening to Philly Cam Radio, WPPM LP 106.5 FM, and Philly Cam TV, live streaming on Xfinity 66, 966 on Vios TV 29 and 30, Roku, Apple TV, and check us out on the our YouTube channel, The Looking Forward Show. Again, I want a big shout out for our fundraising drive here at WPPM. This is the one time of the year where we really reach out to our audience and say, look, you're listening to some great programming all the time on this station, and there is something you can do to help keep it going forward, and that's make a small donation. It really goes to everything from our transmitter and antenna and tower cables to headphones that we're wearing, automation software, internet, licensing fees. The list goes on, but this show can't happen without, additional financial support. So please go out there, and it's really simple. Get onto the website at WPPMphillycam.org/donate and make your donation. We're super close. We're getting there, but hopefully by the end of the show, we'll get to our 5,000 mark. So go out there and make that donation. So we're here with Deputy Secretary Christian Stevens. Thank you again for being with us today, and love the conversation. So before we talk a little bit more about justice, I do have another question. You're an avid basketball fan, and I know your heart bleeds coaching, and you love it. And I'm curious, NBA driven. You're gonna is your next chapter coaching in the NBA? What's the deal?
No, I'm going to hang it up. I love working with the kids. I have a 13-year-old son now who's playing AAU basketball.
Nice.
And so I enjoy spending my time with the kids.
I love it. Yeah, basketball is such a great sport, and I remember you had been working with some athletes, I believe in the Greek league. Yeah. Abroad.
Yes.
And good memory. And they and you were helping kind of guide them through that process. And I'm curious, do you stay in touch with any of the old players?
I stay in touch with all my players. I'll tell you, you build these relationships with them, and you become their mentor. And so it's a great opportunity that even when they're done playing basketball, you stay part of their life.
I love it. Great stuff. And I did not know this. I did not know that you were a gymnastic instructor.
Yes.
I did not know that, because I would have, I would have teased you about that. But we'll get there one day. We were talking before we left. I kind of set the stage for you of, one of the things I love to do at this show, and one of the reasons I have this show, is because it's not just about giving people information. It's really getting people to understand what can they do to make change happen. And I'm curious, from your perspective, what is it that our audience should be thinking about? What is it that even people coming home should be thinking about when they get back into the community, and what can we do to make it easier for people in that transition?
Well, I would focus on three things. One, we have 10 districts across the state. All 10 districts have a citizens advisory committee that works hand in hand with parole. And so if you want to help this process, get involved and join State Parole Citizens Advisory Committee. That would be awesome. Secondly, if you're an employer and you're willing to hire someone who's returning home, you can reach out to whatever your local parole office is. We're always trying to get individuals good paying jobs that can get them started once they come home. And the last thing is housing. If you are a landlord and you're willing to rent to someone who's returning to the community, then reach out to our parole office. Like I said, we have 26 parole offices across the state. We try to keep a list of landlords that are willing to rent, and everyone needs a good, safe home to come home to.
Yeah, so we talk about in our show, we talk a lot about the challenges and the barriers people face coming home. In the hierarchy of the number one going down the list, housing's got to be pretty darn high up there as far as people coming home and really having some place they can go to that they can call home.
Right. I'll tell you, where you said that Philadelphia and Pittsburgh were our two biggest districts, Harrisburg has actually overtaken Pittsburgh.
Wow.
And it's because of affordable housing. Our population will trend to where the affordable housing is. So we see more people going to Harrisburg now than we see going to Pittsburgh.
That's incredible. We have to do a better job at providing some kind of affordable housing for people as they come home and helping them navigate, even if it's just transitional housing. So right below that, I kind of put the issue of employment.
Yes.
And I think we're chipping away at that. I
Right.
think employers are we're starting to have a dialogue now. And a lot of that's because of the market. There right now are more jobs in our country than there are people to fill them. And employers are saying, whoa, let's wait a second. We've been excluding these people for a really long time. Maybe we should be taking another look.
So I just want to add a plug for that. That if you give one of our reentrants an opportunity, there was this thought back in the day that parole was going to be calling them into the office and parole was going to be showing up at the job, and that's not what we do. That's not what we do. We want them to have a viable employment, and we're going to support them, and we're going to support their employer.
Yeah, and it's not just about the job. It's really helping people find that career. And sometimes, for the longest time, parole officers would say, you need a job, you need a job, you need a job. And the I'll take anything attitude is often something that's the worst thing that can happen, because they take a job they really don't like, they start getting responsibility, the job goes away, all the responsibility stays, and then what happens? So I think really focusing on making that good fit. Allowing people the latitude to say, you know what, this is what I love to do, and this is what my target is, and officers helping people kind of navigate that. I probably get 2 calls a week, maybe 3 or 4, that are from parole officers saying, Mr. A, we need somebody in this industry sector. What do you got? Or, we need somebody that has a CDL driver but can't leave Pennsylvania. Like, who do you got that can do local driving? And there's a lot out there. There's really a lot of employers that are starting to engage and have these discussions. And a lot of it's kudos to the DOC starting to step up a little bit more. I know Dorinda Harmeland, who I work with at the DOC, is starting to really get out there and share some of the great work, talking to employers and educating them and sharing a little more about what actually takes place.
Right, and I'll tell you, we're actually seeking these partnerships. I took a phone call last week from a company out in Pittsburgh that builds sustainable housing, and they wanted to partner with us, and what that would look like. So we're in conversations with them right now on individuals who may be at our centers or individuals who are coming home that, like you said, don't just want a job, but they want a career.
Yeah. So the jobs down there, and then below that is identification. So I'm glad to say that we've done a lot better job in the state, at the state level, of helping people get identification. We're not there yet in the counties, but we're starting to get there, and we're getting better when people leave the DOC, making sure they have a driver's license or state ID or something, because they can't work without that.
Right.
So you need to have those pieces in place, and I'm glad to see that we're kind of chipping away at it. It's you eat an elephant one bite at a time. We'll get there. We'll keep at it. We'll keep doing it.
Well, I'll add one more thing to that.
Sure.
Not only are individuals leaving now with their identification, but if they're on any type of medication, they're leaving with their medication. I think that's important.
Huge. And I know you guys have been in discussions with a company, and I don't know if it's a contract yet, but There's a company out there, I don't want to say their name, but that actually has been helping people secure their medical records when they leave from the DOC, which is remarkable because a lot of times people come out and they'll go to the doctor and they'll say, "What are you making medications you on?" Well, I take 2 blues and a red, and
right.
they had no idea. So actually having their medical records with them or having access to them is a big deal, and I think that's something that I'd like to see more of as we go forward. So I only got a few minutes left, but is there something you want our audience to know, or that they should know about probation and parole and the work the DOC is doing?
I mean, I would really just want them to know that how progressive we are. The thought of what parole used to be, that people would come to a building and that's not what we do anymore. That we've really turned the corner. We've really made that transition. We understand the importance of partnering these communities. We understand that our job is really to help individuals stay home, help them become successful. And so I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, so I would just add one piece to that, and that I think if, and this is not just in Pennsylvania, but across the country, if we can just get parole officers to bring some humanity back into their work and recognize that all those people that they work with we're just human beings, just made some bad choices that landed us a certain way, but working with them as human beings. And I think you've done a much better job over the years of recognizing that they're out.
Yes.
And people are home.
I mean, one of the things when we go around, like I just came from Scranton today, so I had the opportunity over the last few months to visit all 26 offices. I just finished the last one today. And one of the things that the theme of almost every meeting is that there is no them and us, it's just us.
Yeah.
We're all in this together. So, that's been really positive, moving forward.
I love it. Definitely, just some great information, and looking forward to meeting the new secretary. Haven't had a chance to meet her yet, but looking forward to that and some of the great initiatives that we're hoping that will change the face of corrections in Pennsylvania. And I was recently on a call, and people were talking about states that really needed some work, focused work at a national level, and Pennsylvania was not a target there because they've been doing some great work. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And great stuff. I'm glad you took some time with us today. I really appreciate it. I will tell you, we're talking about our friend Lou, and Lou Narvaez, he's just a remarkable human being. He's given some great advice to people along the way. He really gives you your attention. And if there's a probation and parole issue in the Eastern District and in Philadelphia, I know that he'll do whatever he can to get to the bottom of it. May not be always the answer you want to hear, but he's always going to give you a pretty straight answer of what's going on, and that's all you really can ask.
Yes. I mean, Lou has been a godsend, to the Eastern District. And, one of the things he preaches to his agents all the time is our goal is to focus on the process.
Yeah.
And then we'll get to the outcome, and so the Eastern region right now is very, process focused, and they're doing a great job.
Good stuff, really good stuff. So, Christian Stevens, thank you so much for joining us. Any final words?
Well, I would utter Lou's words,
Go for it.
Is that everyone, that the goal is always to be successful, and sometimes we're so focused on the end, but if we commit to the process, then the outcome will take care of itself.
Yeah, good words, and I thank you so much for coming down. I know you had a long ride from Scranton today to make it here, but we look forward to doing the show. We'd love to even maybe think about coming up and doing remote and doing it in Harrisburg, or maybe going out to a facility. Looking forward, it's going to be on the road this year. We're able to do a lot of broadcasting now remotely and taping our show, and we're going to be getting out in the field more and more. But when I'm here, I'm in the studio, we're doing our thing, and I want to thank everybody out there for listening to us again. We can't do this work without the great staff here at PhillyCam, and I want to give a shout out to them because the PhillyCam staff has just been amazing. They're always spot on as far as helping us get the show ready and getting it out to our audience, and really giving everyone the voice out there. So if you have a second today and you really want to do something really impactful, take a minute and make a donation to PhillyCam Fund Drive, which is very easy to do. Just go to wppm.phillycam.com looking.org/donate and make your donation today. It's going to keep the Looking Forward show going forward, and it's kept us in place for the last almost 5 years, so we're looking forward to another 5 going forward. Big shout out to Christian Stevens. Thank you so much for joining us today. Shout out to Lou Narvaez today, and Lou, we hope you're doing well. We appreciate you and glad that you allowed Christian to step aside today and allowed him to join us for the day. So again, you're listening to the Looking Forward show, and we're going to be back in a few weeks with some more goodies. I think next show is Father's Day celebration. So we'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. You've been watching or listening to the Looking Forward show with Jeffrey Abramowitz. You can listen to us on PhillyCam Radio at WPPM LP Philadelphia 106.5 FM or PhillyCam TV. We're live streamed at Xfinity 66 and 966, Fios TV 29 and 30, Roku, Apple TV, Facebook, or check us out on our YouTube, The Looking Forward Show channel. If you need to reach The Looking Forward Show, you can reach us at lookingforwardshow@gmail.com.